best-selling thriller in the world. General plot: 10 people are lured to an island off the coast of Devon, which has a remote house on it, and they are all strangers, never met before, most of them. At dinner that evening, they are all accused of murder at various points in their past. And from that point onwards, they systematically get picked off in very gruesome and inventive ways. There are 8 men and 3 ladies. I've broken them down into 3 groups. First group, they only make it through Act 1. The second group manage to make it to Act 2, but not quite into Act 3. And the third group make it into Act 3, but not necessarily to the end of the play. First character, Fred Nabokot. Now, he is the local boatman. He brings things into the island, all the food and supplies, also some of the visitors. It's a very small part. It is the only small part in the play. It's almost a walk-on, about a couple of lines. And it would ideally be taken by whoever decides to become one of my 2 stage managers. We get on to the proper characters. So firstly, I've got Mrs. Rogers. She and her husband have been brought onto the island by the mysterious Mr. and Mrs. Owen. Her as the cook and housekeeper, and her husband as the butler. They're going to look after the guests over the weekend, but they've never met their employers. Our second casualty of Act 1 is Anthony Marsden. He's in his 20s, he's irreverent, arrogant, and he should have the carefree exuberance of a young, wealthy man completely in love with himself. Now we've got the second group, slightly larger, they're on stage slightly longer. We've got Mr. Rogers, husband to the aforementioned Mrs. Rogers. He outlives his wife, but not for very long. We also have General Mackenzie. Now he's a retired army man from the First World War. I'm looking for someone in their 50s upwards. Last of the group, we come to the second of our 3 ladies, Emily Brent. She's a formidable spinster and a religious fanatic. So to note, any ladies interested in this part must be able to knit, or at least fake it convincing. Now we have our core cast members. These people will need to be available for the majority of the rehearsals. Sir Lawrence Wargrave. He's a retired judge brought to the island by an invitation from his friend Lady Constance Colmington to recuperate after a recent operation. Looking for an older gentleman who can convince with natural authority. We have Dr. Armstrong. He's a retired surgeon, now in private practice. Now he's one of the characters who's brought on in his professional capacity as a nerve specialist. And for the next character I'm going to talk about, William Blore. I'm looking for gentlemen probably in their 40s. So if you're interested in this part, you need to do a fairly convincing South African accent, but only until roughly the end of Act 1, when his true identity is revealed. And finally, the last of our gentlemen, Philip Lombard, the adventurer and the man with the gun. And last but by no means least, we have our third lady, and who is the largest role in the play. Vera Claythorne. She's a young woman in her late 20s, early 30s. She's a games mistress, and she takes the job of a secretary to the mysterious Mrs. Owen. It is an ensemble piece in which a lot happens, so teamwork is going to be key. And I really hope everyone who is interested will come to my reading on the 26th of April.
As you know, we do the 5 plays in the main theatre. We also do 2 plays now in this studio, and the first one of those is being directed by Steve Gill. It's Lost and Found. This is a brand new play by John Godber and his wife Jane Thornton.
They co-wrote, sort of bouncers and shakers, things like that. But John Godber and Jane Thornton also sort of do some quite gentle plays, and this is quite a gentle play. It's two plays insofar as the two one-act plays, lost by Jane Thornton and found by John Godber. It's a story of two people, Tom and Chelsea, and they work in Scarborough, in a hotel in Scarborough, and in the first play, in Lost, they are given the chance, if you like, or given the job of standing in for the Palm Court boys who haven't turned up. So it's their job to entertain the audience, and they do so by recreating people's lives who've come to the hotel, mainly two old people. So the actors are playing themselves, but they also play two old people. Typical Godber, this. In the second play, in Found, the same two characters are seen at the end of the season at the hotel, and there's a little bit of a love story going on between the two of them. It's the two playing themselves. But it's a slightly unusual love story because she is actually quite a bit older than he is. And so the criteria for ages on this one is the man needs to be in his 20s to mid-30s, I would suggest. He's supposed to be a sort of postgraduate student. And she is supposed to be mid-30s, but probably more likely 40s into sort of early 50s. The only criteria for the man, it might be slightly different, is he needs to get his kit off. Or at least to a certain degree. We need to see sort of perhaps a bit of bum cheek or something like that. But nothing too much. It's a very straight play. There is nothing untoward about it. There's no bad language or anything like that.
You don't have to show it at the audition.
You don't have to show at the audition. But the female actress might need to give approval, just to make sure it's the right one. So that's it. And the
reading is on Friday the 29th.
Friday the 29th. Okay. Anybody that's interested but can't make Friday the 29th, if you please let me know, and I'll keep you informed. We'll have another night. Okay. Thanks very much.
Most of you will remember it from the film, which was Judi Dench and Maggie Smith, and they are the main characters in the play, the two sisters. They are the people that obviously we will need to have there all the time for the rehearsals, because they are in every single scene. Very fortunate in doing this, because we will, if not be the very first amateur company to do it, we will be certainly one of the first amateur companies to do it, because it's only just been released for amateur performance. So that's really quite interesting to be able to do that. I'm quite interested in having that challenge. The play is very nostalgic, it's very evocative of its era. It's set in 1937. It's romantic, it's sad, but it also has some really good moments of comedy, mainly brought about by the maid Dorcas, because she's quite sharp and funny, and doesn't have any time for perhaps what the two sisters are, about. It's about this young Polish man who is basically washed up on the shore, and anybody speaking with a foreign accent being washed up on a shore in 1937 should be raising alarm bells, and doesn't seem to as much as it should really. So it's quite interesting there. And the young violinist, she needs to be exquisitely beautiful according to the script. So we've got exquisitely beautiful violinists tonight. The other young, exquisite, beautiful person is the artist in it, Olga, who is Russian, so we need a Russian accent as well. And then, of course, we've got the sisters conversing in German to the Polish violinist, because that's their common language that they can. The characters, there are 6 in total. Obviously there's the 2 sisters. There's Janet Widdington, who's the older sister. She's been married before, but she lost her husband in the Great War, and that bitterness about war and the fact that it's coming again and that she lost her husband as a very young man is living with her, and she is quite a bitter, sharp and acerbic woman, really. She can't get over that. She's of that generation that, you know, lost fiancés and husbands and so on in the First World War. Her sister, who's slightly younger, they're both, I don't know, they could be somewhere between 50 and 70, really, you know. It doesn't matter, I'm not worried if we get 2 good characters, you know. They're just around about that sort of age. Ladies of a certain age, which is goodness only knows what. You keep seeing it written somewhere, but that's what it is. So she's slightly younger, she's a spinster. And then there's Dorcas, the housekeeper, who's short-tempered, irritable, but she does have some lovely comedy moments in it. There is then a typical country doctor, Dr. Mead, who is called to attend to this young Polish man who they find injured on the beach outside their cottage. And, you know, he does all this sort of country doctor type thing. It doesn't matter what age he is, really, to be honest. Although he does have a bit of an eye for the Russian girl, Olga. He's quite interested in her. It doesn't matter if he's older, though. It's just the fact that he is interested in her. And obviously, the young Polish violinist becomes quite interested in the beautiful Russian artist as well. Olga Danilov is this Russian artist. We don't know exactly why she's in the village, but she's painting. She's there painting in this Cornish village. Very conveniently, she has a brother who's a very, very famous performer, musician, and ultimately is able to help Andrea to achieve his ambitions as a violinist. So it's all...
You've worked on this, Joe. You've worked on this.
That's what the sets are like.
And I put these here for you to have a look at later on. I've got a chart here. If you can see the red, that means it's quite a big part. If it's a blue, it's a medium part. And if it's green, it's a little part. And if it's green and blue, it's... So, we start off with the first scene, obviously. Myrtle and Vita. Vita's a real Duchess grandeur sort of society lady who are really worried about his brother Elwood and this big white rabbit. So she decides she's going to go to the sanatorium to get him committed. And there she meets all these different other characters in here. Actually, I put a Miss Johnson, but I can't find her in the script. I've lost her somewhere or other. But I think she actually has half a line somewhere along there. But it's actually on the cast list at the front, which I used to start with. So, a lovely part, and I've put these sort of ages beside them. Myrtle obviously wants to be sort of 25, 30. But again, when we talk about ages, we've all talked about, you know, we can go down, we can go up. It depends on sort of the mixture that we've got. Vita, grandeur, Vita Louise Simmons is 50, 60, come give or take either way. Lovely, lovely part. Goes to the sanatorium to put Elwood P. Dowd into committed, and finishes up finding herself being committed in the sanatorium, which is absolutely, and that is done by these characters. They've got another character, a smallish part, Mrs. Ethel Chauvenet, who comes in, and she's a society lady who comes in and talks a lot of rubbish, and you all have to believe in it. But it's a lovely, lovely, lovely little character part there. Again, 50, 70, I've got to be careful about ages, knowing my age, and you know. There's Ruth Kelly. Once you get to the sanatorium, we have Ruth Kelly, who's one of the nurses. That's a fairly reasonable part. And then there's Dwayne Wilson. He's the big superintendent nurse who looks after all the ones that don't behave themselves. So again, that could be any age really, but it's better to be on the younger side. Lyman Sanderson, the MD, he's got quite a large part. He's the doctor in charge of all this, and he's got quite a bit of good business. And then there's the top man. He's the real big guy, and that's William R. Chumley. He's the one that they all react to or confer to, and he comes bowling in. But then, and he's got his wife Betty Chumley. She comes in at a later stage, and she's got quite a smallish part. And then one of the nicest parts is Judge Omar Gaffney. Of course, when Vita comes back and finds it and gets back home and has been committed, what they've done is stripped her down, put her in a bathtub and an ice tub and everything like this, and she's absolutely a horrific, terrible state. She comes back and gets hold of her lawyer, Judge Omar, to prosecute these people. So there's a lot of fun and games and a lot of business going on. Is that I will start rehearsals on Monday the 12th of November. That's immediately after the Ladies and Lavender. And the preview will be Thursday 12th of January. And of course, all those people who've ever been in my plays over Christmas, it is a hard time, but we've always managed, and I do give a certain amount of leeway. Christmas parties. We've managed, haven't we? Please come to my play reading and try and...
On the 27th
of April.
The reading glasses. No problem. I'll have a look at those. Not bad, they're not bad actually. Veronica's Room. By Ira Levy. This is the man that wrote Rosemary's Baby. Yeah, that's what it is. A mystery thriller. Explores the thin line between madness and murder. Oh, nothing matters. A man and a woman, aged between 22 and 25, stretchable. They are befriended by another couple, a man and a woman, who are in their 50s plus stretch.
What's he been drinking?
Ira Levin doesn't want to say too much about this play because it gives too much away. In the book, he doesn't even name the characters, so I'm not going to tell you their names. But 4 actors that can enunciate. And believe me, I said just watch this space.
of that really.
Got some glasses.
The Shape of Things, which I previously acted in quite a few years ago, and for me it's quite an exciting and relevant play. It's modern. It was first performed in 2001 with Paul Rudd and Rachel Wise, who were in the original cast, and it's been made into a film with them as well. I'll just read what it says on the back here. How far would you go for love, for art? What would you be willing to change? Which price might you pay? Such are the painful questions explored by Neil the Butte in The Shape of Things. A young student drifts into an ever-changing relationship with an art major while his best friend's engagement crumbles, so unleashing a drama that peels back the skin of two modern-day relationships, exposing the raw meat and gristle that lie beneath. Sounds very exciting. So, cast-wise, it's 4. It's 2 males and 2 female. Unfortunately, it's set in a university in America, so we need American accents, but it also then determines that the age range is probably mid-20s to late 20s. So, straight away I know that's maybe what, yeah, it's quite young, I'm afraid. And we can, obviously, people can play younger, people can play older, but you've got to, yeah, you've got to. So, coming to the characters, Adam would need to be at every rehearsal. Adam is probably the main character of the play. He goes on quite a big journey throughout the play. He starts off quite a shy, retiring, geeky character, not your conventional, beautiful man who is appealing to everybody. But by the end of the play, he does. He has to transcend into this, what society perceives a good-looking man who people would be attracted to, and is quite confident. So for him, that's quite for an actor, that's quite a challenge to go on that journey. The reason he does is because he meets Evelyn, which is the art major, and they start dating, and she starts suggesting things that he might try and do. I change his hair. It starts off quite small, going to the gym, does plastic surgery. It's be interesting trying to do this on stage, easier to do in front of it on film. So he then changed, which has a dramatic effect on his relationship with his best friend. I say in inverted commas because that's questionable. Philip, who is his roommate, who is engaged to Jenny, who's the other character in it. Then 2 aren't as big parts as Adam and Evelyn. But I think for a cast of 4, you need to really gel and really work together, and those characters really impact on what is going on with the main 2. So it's exciting. It's going to be in the studio, which I think works really well because it's intimate and the audience will feel part of it. We're going to have minimalist set, so it will involve the actors moving the set around to create the different spaces, because it does happen in lots of various rooms and different places around this campus. And 2 male.
And your casting night is the same as Steve's,
yeah,
Lost and Found, on Friday the 29th.
I was working in the lab.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see you all here. For those who were here last year, you can go home now, because I was doing the same play last year and it didn't come about. Do it on the main stage this time, whereas last year it was planned to be one of the 2 performances in the studio here, which of course has a massive different effect on the way you do it in the spaces and the atmosphere of it. It's very reminiscent of Monty Python. So it's a very funny play, but it deals with nuclear war and death and betrayal and all these other things. So it's great. A and you've got the actors got to strut around the stage in sort of silly sort of John Cleese type over the top styles, whilst, as I say, dealing with the extremely dark subjects. So before I go on to the lighting and the sound effects as well, 1950s technology, so you've got a lot of sounds of electricity fizzing and popping and electrocuting him and electrodes, and I want all that sort of horrendous noise of frying bodies whilst they perform these stand-up acts of one-line gags that you could have got out of Monty Python. Who and who's threatening who. So the acting needs guys who can do a passable impression of John Cleese or his cohorts in a comic sense, but also, when it gets serious, is to create menace and threat and uncomfortableness and worrying about what is going on in the world, bearing in mind it's the 1950s. So now to the bit that alienates part of the room. There's only one ladies' part in this play, so that leaves not many of you left. The other 6 parts, there are 6, not many of you left. The other 6 parts, there are 6 parts for the men. I'm not going to go through each individual character because they're very, very impersonal as the numbers really. I think that's one of his jokes. So the men characters, the 6 men characters, are all staff and officers, bureaucrats, unspecifiable bureaucrats in this institution. And to give you an idea of what we need, there is 2, 3 possibly in their 50s-ish, 2 in their 30s-ish, and 1, which is probably the most narrow requirement, 1 young chap in his 20s, and then the 1 lady part is in probably 30s, early 30s, but could be any age under 40 probably. I think that's all I can say. And
yes, the reading is on the 28th of April.
April 28th.
April the 28th.